going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday and welcome to Season 5, Episode 2 of the DFS Pick 6. And once again, like I am every week, I'm Eric Crain, joined by two of the absolute best in the biz. We got Lord Reeves, Rich Hribar. What's up, Reeves?
What's going on, guys? Week 2, we made it. Week 1, to be honest, man, week 1 kind of felt pretty normal. Like I don't know how you guys felt about watching the games, but it kind of just felt like nothing really out of the – like it didn't feel like it was like gonna feel. Like I was expecting it to be like either bad football or kind of feel spacious, and it just felt like regular games, man.
Yeah, it was look, anytime like the Washington defense is crushing it, I'm going to feel a little bit strange. But it was a pretty normal week, honestly. The chalk got there last week. I told you guys pre-show how I felt about that. And we're hoping to get it a little bit better this week. Not that we were bad last week, but your boy over here was not a good week for your boy, John Daigle. How was NFL Week 1 for you?
To be fair, I joined you in fading Josh Jacobs altogether. So
right.
The chalk hit, and thus we did not hit. But it's okay. This is a new week.
Shopping for nooses too, so that's good.
This is a new week. We're okay. We're going to be just fine.
Yeah, okay. I like it.
There you go. I like it when Crane's happy. Because pre-show, I was worried. But now, 5 minutes later,
I always say that they should give the pre-show like a camera to the premium subscribers. Like,
no, wouldn't show up. Nope.
No one wants to see how the sausage is made, man.
No, I bet it's so bleeping true. But of course, we're going to be making some sausage. We're going to be making some cheese tonight because we're going to be talking about 3 of our favorite games. We're going to be talking about quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and we're going to start it off in a spot where you guys better get used to this because we're going to be talking about Panthers games for, I don't know, when's their bye week? Every week except for their bye week, we're going to be talking about. I love that Daigle has the bye week memorized. It's kind of amazing, and I don't know, man.
Well, that's the FFPC weeks. Everyone knew, like, what do you do?
That's right.
In the playoffs.
15. I remember that.
Everyone's
and
like,
Bucks.
what do we do? Yeah, what do we do with Christian McCaffrey if he's on bye?
Turns out you just drafted.
Yeah, you just play him, and you just do well. By the way, Brent G, I see you Brett G, I see you typing in the YouTube chat. If you're watching this live, go ahead and check us out, rotogrinders.com/video. Of course, we're in the YouTube chat, hanging out, having a good time. Let's talk about the Panthers and the Bucs. So it's a 47.5-point total. Tampa Bay, 9.5-point favorites at home. We saw Tom Brady. I don't know if you want to say he struggled in the first start. 2 interceptions, 1 pick six in that Bruce Arians offense. Looked okay. You know, the noodle arm maybe doesn't show up till it gets a little bit cooler outside. Carolina, you guys know I was all over that Carolina game last week. Unfortunately, it was the running backs that crushed for the Panthers and the Raiders. So, Daigle, I see you nodding your head talking about being on Carolina last week. I know you were there. I know you're going to be on Tampa a little bit this week. Where are you going with this game? Because according to Vegas, it's supposed to be the running backs. You know, it's supposed to be Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette. I don't like any of these guys, Daigle. Tell me what's going on with the Bucs side.
Yeah, like you said, the Bucs are implied to score the third most points, 28.5 on this slate. I genuinely think, though, it should be 3 points higher because, yes, the Bucs led the entire league in run play rate and neutral game script against the Saints. So I do worry about the volume for Brady, but there's never been a better time given the implied total, given the fact that Carolina missed the second most tackles last week for Brady and in particular Mike Evans coming off of that 4-target game. Now the good news is Mike Evans moves away from Marshawn Lattimore since Lattimore basically built a house in his jersey on Sunday. But we also have coach speak going for Evans since Arians came out and said he hates the fact that Evans didn't get at least 10 targets on Sunday. And Evans has seen 4 or fewer targets in only 2 full games the past 3 years, 2 full games as well under Bruce Arians the past 2 seasons. And both those games were against Marshawn Lattimore and the Saints. Last time this happened, the following game, they also played the Panthers. Last time this happened against the Panthers, it was 17 targets the following week for Mike Evans. So given all of that, I think Mike Evans is in a terrific bounce back spot. I want Brady against this soft defense, despite what we think about his noodle arm. And I'm sure Rich has some takes on the Bucs backfield as well.
All right, let's hear it, Reeves, because if you have takes on the Bucs backfield, man, you are braver than I am because it feels like whatever I do, I'm going to get it wrong. I know Ronald Jones was decent last week. Leonard Fournette still picking up this offense. You have to think that eventually Fournette's going to take this job. Is it going to be this week? I mean, where are you going with Tampa this week?
Yeah, it's an interesting development. I love Mike Evans' spot. And, Mike Evans, doesn't have to deal with James Bradbury anymore either. He always had to contend with all these different weird cornerbacks in the NFC South. Bradbury's gone. So, wheels up for Mike Evans. Brady, I thought, looked pretty good from an arm strength stance. And, he threw some long balls on the money. A lot of them turned into penalty yards, but instead of catches, but he was winging it around a little bit. Definitely one bad one to Janoris there, but I like Brady in a bounce back spot, even for as bad as people thought he was. I mean, he still had 20 fantasy points and was the QB 13 last week. Definitely think he goes up from that point total to in this game because just we want to play everyone against Carolina. It doesn't matter who you have. I tweeted out before we got on the show the Panthers have allowed 3 or more touchdowns to their opponents in 13 straight games going back to last year. That's the longest streak in the NFL since the 1963-64 season. In the past 5 games, allowed 4 or more touchdowns. They've allowed multiple rushing touchdowns in their past 6 games dating back to last year. So I think you do definitely just blind faith some running production here. For at least 1 week, I mean, Bruce Arians did tell the truth. I mean, it was Ronald Jones. I mean, he handled 73% of the backfield touches. It was the 9th highest rate among all running backs in the NFL last week. He ran into a tough matchup and still had 82 total yards and had a 20-yard reception called back. He handled 17 to 22 touches. I mean, it was his job. Will Leonard Fournette definitely probably start inking up over the 6 touches he had? Sure. But I mean, right now, I still think Ronald Jones is a very interesting, play here at his price. I think that there's definitely touchdown, equity to be had here based on the team total and the amount of touchdowns, like I said, the Panthers have routinely allowed. So I don't really have a problem playing Ronald Jones. Eventually we will get probably Lucy with the football, Charlie Brown with Lucy pulling the football on us on Ronald Jones. But, I still think this is the time to strike early in the year based on week 1 too.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to play Rojo, go for it, and I get it. Somebody's scoring for Tampa Bay. One of these running backs are going to score. It ain't going to be LaShawn McCoy. It could be Rojo. It could be Leonard Fournette. I don't think we're going to see Brady on any quarterback sneaks. Daigle, we've got the Chris Godwin situation too. We're the concussion protocol today. How concerned are you about Godwin? Because if he misses, all of a sudden we're going to have a little Scotty Miller value. What do you think here about just the whole Chris Godwin situation?
Scotty Miller looked good. They manufactured plays for him. Like they were calling screens specifically for him, which stands out as cheap value, which is what we want if we're trying to fit in Christian McCaffrey. So unfortunately, Mike Evans' ownership will increase if Chris Godwin's out. And I do prefer Evans over Godwin if they're both healthy. Godwin's a weird one though, just because, these concussion syndromes typically happen 24 hours afterwards. It's been 2 days and they said nothing was out of the normal. And suddenly on Wednesday morning, they said just something popped up and they moved him to the league's protocol. So I don't know what's going to happen with Godwin. But again, if they both play, I still prefer Evans anyhow.
Yeah, and another guy that they're talking about in the chat, and Reeves, I feel like I'm a year younger right now because they're talking about O.J. Howard. They're sitting here saying they run a lot of 2 tight end sets, and I understand he did better than, he did basically all of last year. I'm not playing Gronk. Like, I will probably go this whole season without any Gronk exposure. O.J. Howard, though, Reeves, what are we doing with Howard? Any interest there in tournaments?
I mean, it's still, you're chasing a touchdown. That's what you're doing. You're doing what you did last week. I mean, he still was way under, the snap rate of Gronk, and he ran 2 fewer pass routes than Gronk. I mean, 19 pass routes in the context of the game. You say, they ran some, 2 tight end stuff, but 19 pass routes in the context of all tight end pass routes that you can play on the slate definitely isn't a lot of pass routes to latch onto. So, I mean, you're definitely still just chasing a touchdown there for him.
If Godwin misses, though.
If Godwin misses, I mean, you just play Scotty Miller, man. The dude had 6 targets and 70 yards. Had a chance for another long play. If his 6 targets turn into 8 targets or 9 targets at his price, I mean, you just do it, man.
Yeah, and again, you just play guys in Bruce Arians' offense and you play guys against the Panthers. So really all these bucks are perfectly viable. Now the Panthers side, a little bit trickier because they are 9.5-point underdogs. Christian McCaffrey, of course, you can play him any week, but at $10,000 over on DraftKings, Daigle, is he in play for you this week?
It's like you said, the question isn't if McCaffrey will hit. McCaffrey always hits. The question is, can he return a $10K salary for the second week in a row on DraftKings? And I have my doubts. Last year in 2 games against the Bucs, remember, McCaffrey didn't average, totaled 38 carries for 68 yards and a touchdown and 6 catches for 42 yards and another touchdown. Not what we want from our 10K players. So I think the pivot would be one of these Carolina receivers. We called it correctly last week. We didn't know which one is going to hit, and the usage was expected. At least 31 routes for all 3 of their starting wideouts, at least 8 targets for all 3 of the starting wideouts. And it was actually DJ Moore who produced the least in the box score, but led the team in target share. I'm still going to have DJ Moore if I'm running back a double stack with Brady, Jones, and Mike Evans. The issue is that fantasy players have gotten so much smarter, particularly in DFS. And so I just feel DJ Moore, especially since his salary, like a place on Fanduel, isn't increasing what it should increase. He's still going to be high owned this week.
Yeah, and we saw a guy, if you were Throbby for Robbie last week, you did pretty well. 8 targets, 6 catches, 28.5 points in fantasy last week. Reeves, he's just one of these guys that if he hits a big play, you're going to need him. If he doesn't hit a big play, sorry, are you Throbby for Robbie this week?
Like Daigle said, they had kind of all identical usage in a sense, except for Samuel. Moore and Anderson definitely they had almost identical depths of targets. DJ Moore did have 2 end zone targets, and it's been the bugaboo for his career. He had 10 total end zone targets in his first 2 seasons, so he didn't convert them. But getting 2 end zone targets was a nice, positive, ray of sunshine for him in week 1. It means they were drawing up plays for him, and he was the first read on some plays near the goal line. So definitely some potential there to hopefully latch onto over the course of the season. Robbie Anderson, if he doesn't hit that big play, we're probably not talking about him except for just the targets. But they didn't use Robbie Anderson strictly as just a vertical target. His ADOT was just 11.8 yards. They used him in that Matt Rule offense. That Joe Brady get the ball out, out of Teddy Bridgewater's hands and get the ball to their playmaker. Samuel's probably a little concerning just because he seems to be the guy that if McCaffrey gets more targets, they'll cut into Samuel's because where his, depth of target was just 6.5 yards compared to that, 14.5 yard ADOT he had, a year ago when he was just strictly like a downfield bomber. Yeah, it's an interesting spot. DJ Moore wasn't high owned last week. A lot of people still weren't on him. I'm
hanging on him, buddy. I'm going right back to the well because not
a lot of people. His ownership wasn't high, and he was in like that weird purgatory pricing. I played some of him, and he just didn't hit. Definitely not displeased with the process that got me there. I think he's like the most obvious play. I think that McCaffrey is definitely in a spot to go under ownership on him. As he went to 10.5 on FanDuel too, where you don't even get full PPR. Him to return 10.5 value over there seems pretty nuts when you can just play Derrick Henry and Ezekiel Elliott for $2K cheaper. It's tough. I think it's a tough spot for McCaffrey to really pay off. Like in a season-long league, you're definitely not scared of the matchup or running away, but I think his ceiling is probably like in the area of like 20 to 25 PPR points as like a best case outcome instead of dropping me on those 30-point weeks. But if you're going to run it back, I think you run it back with Moore. Maybe you get cute with Robbie Anderson and Chase, maybe even cute with Ian Thomas. But this offense for the Carolina Panthers looks a lot similar to what we expected the Arizona Cardinals to look like a year ago when they just didn't have the horses. All like intermediate targets and just peppering their receivers. No team targeted their receivers more in week 1 than the Carolina Panthers. And that's something that I think we're going to see happen on a regular basis.
Yeah, and even if they don't score the points, especially on DraftKings and PPR formats, I think all these guys are in play. I'm likely not going to chase Robbie Anderson, but DJ Moore at 6'3", in a game where they should be throwing the ball a ton, and they want to throw it a ton anyways. They're going to have to throw it even more in this matchup, though. I like Moore quite a bit. Let's move on to the Vikings at the Colts, a couple of teams that disappointed in week 1, especially if you were in any survivor leagues. You're not very happy with the Colts right now. They're 3-point favorites at home against Minnesota in a 48.5-point total. The big news here, of course, Marlon Mack, he gone. Everybody drafted Marlon Mack saying, well, he'll hold the job for a little bit. You hold Jonathan Taylor off towards ACL. He is done for the year, which means, Daigle, we have Mr. Jonathan Taylor going to get all the work for the Indianapolis Colts. Against Minnesota. You what?
I said also going to get all the ownership.
Yeah, that's true. I know. Hey, 5.7K, and we got to project it at 30% right now. I'll take the over on that. But look, with these running backs that get action and they're home favorites, and we know the Colts, when they're at home leading, they just like to pound the hell out of these running backs. I think he's good chalk, man. What about you?
I do as well. I don't want to say he's a free square at 5,700 because it is certainly possible Nyheim Hines comes in and steals touches and touchdowns inside the 5. But we were most worried about Jonathan Taylor's hands coming out of Wisconsin, since they were projected to be at best league average. And in his very first week, 6 targets, 6 catches, and we know what he does when he gets the ball in his hands, 11 yards per catch.
Yep.
So the fact he's now involved over Marlon Mack, because remember in that first half, he was on the bench. It was Mack, Hines, and then Taylor. He wasn't going to play at all unless the game got completely out of hand. But now we can probably put him in a clear 50-50 timeshare, and we also think he's going to do better in a 50-50 timeshare if him and Hines were to split touches. So I agree with you. I love Taylor in this spot, and I think that'll be the common conclusion for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, Reeves, it's a don't get cute spot for me. Same for you?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think it's hard to talk yourself out of it, because it would have been different if we didn't see the catches and we had to project, that'd be different. But we saw the 6 targets in the limited playing time, not over the course of a full game. With that just kind of opens the floodgates, because if he's got a chance to get 15 to 20 carries still too, and then be involved in the pass game, I mean, it's just too hard to get away from at that price. Because we always say, like, when you have these guys that are just rushing dependent, you can kind of fade these guys in tournaments because they don't score a touchdown, they're not going to pop. I mean, that's not the case now when he's getting 6 targets. And then, the Vikings were completely, deplorable last week in all facets of defense. So they gave up 176 total yards to the Packers backfield. So, I mean, they're going to get worked on here too as road dogs. It's really hard. I just think it's hard to get away from, and you just have to swallow it, I think. This is one you just take.
I was going to say another guy in this game I'm going to have trouble getting away from is Adam Thielen, somebody that saw a ton of targets last week. Justin Jefferson didn't look all that good. Thielen, the match against the Colts, is it great? No. Is it fine? Yes. And to me, this is the easiest game stack on the planet. You play Taylor on one side, you play Thielen on the other side, and you figure out the rest of your lineup. But Daigle, to me, am I missing something here? Am I just being too simplistic with this?
Well, I think that's what's interesting about Taylor's spot, is because you can either stack Phillip Rivers and T.Y. Hilton with him to diversify your lineup, or perhaps go Phillip Rivers, Paris Campbell, and T.Y. Hilton, or just Rivers and T.Y. Hilton and avoid Taylor, although I wouldn't do that, because this Vikings defense was exactly what we thought they'd be. We figured they'd be a farce coming into the year, and it turns out they were against Aaron Rodgers. Allowed 20 of 24 targets against them to be caught. They blitzed at the league's 4th highest rate, but pressured at the league's lowest rate. And then it's actually the same plan of attack in week 2. Rodgers' time from snap to throw was the league's quickest. Phillip Rivers' time from snap to throw was the 2nd quickest. So we're going to pretty much see the same thing. And the Colts are an offense you want to buy into. T.Y. Hilton and Paris Campbell had the same target share, but it was T.Y. Hilton who had to battle against C.J. Henderson, who was really, really good in his debut. Always a super specimen athlete at Florida, but did allow over 9 yards per target in his senior year. Although people had questions whether it was him just giving poor effort, getting ready for the NFL or not. And he was great in week 1. So I think there was a lot of meat left on the bone for T.Y. Hilton in this game. And so those 3 players in general are ones I'm looking to diversify my lineups with, because they can all go nuts.
Okay, so Reeves, do you have anybody here on Minnesota that you like outside of Adam Thielen? It really is Thielen or probably nobody for me.
Yeah, I mean, they only give the ball to 2 players, so you don't really have to get cute. I mean, the Irv Smith breakout party was definitely postponed. I think it is interesting pivot if you can play the Colts passing game too, and try to just soak up those touchdowns there, and do play against the ownership of Taylor in tournaments if you want. I mean, Taylor, you got to play him in cash. Yeah. But I mean, you can definitely try to run this back and try to just catch the touchdowns in the opposite direction, and have Phillip Rivers, who threw for the fourth most yards in week 1 as well. I mean, the Colts and the Vikings were 32nd and 31st in PPR points allowed per target to opposing wide receivers. So we've just got 2 teams that want to inherently run the football first, which is our problem here. There's a chance this game could pop if there was rational coaching and both teams said, hey, let's attack the biggest weakness each team had in week 1. But I don't know if we'll get that. I don't know if we can rely on that. Definitely not from the Vikings, who threw 5 first half passes last week. But if they do, and if they are so inclined, they have an advantage, because the Colts only forced 1 incompletion to Gardner Minshew and the Jaguars passing game a week ago. There's definitely some upside there if the Vikings want to get aggressive. It's just counting on that. I mean, it's really tough. I love the Hilton call. Hilton, like now that Paris Campbell has emerged and Paris Campbell ran 95% of his routes in the slot, Hilton ran 90% of his routes from the boundary. But that's where the Vikings were. I mean, they struggled altogether. But those two boundary corners they played, well, rookie Cameron Dantzler allowed 7 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown. Holton Hill in his third year allowed 7 for 87 and a touchdown. And it wasn't just Devontae Adams beating up on these guys. It was Alan Lazard and Marcus Valdes-Scantling had a huge game and left another like couple plays on the field.
He left like 100 yards and a touchdown on the field.
It was everyone. It was everyone. So I love Hilton here. I wish he was a little bit cheaper, but I mean, you really can't complain. I think that if this game has a lot of creativity. I think more so than people say, because I think a lot of people are going to look at it like you said, Crain, and say, yeah, I can run Taylor and I run him back with Thielen, and that's the most natural game stack. But I think you can do a lot of creative things in this game. And listen, man, Hines. He had 2 touchdowns and was involved inside the 10-yard line. Like he's also a pivot here. He's got upside as well now too. I mean, he's just not a guy that's going to come out and James White it up. He was involved.
Hines.
So
yeah, it is weird seeing Hines with no projected ownership. I mean, the dude just went for 27 fantasy points and he's got to be 5% owned. I get it. If you're not playing Taylor, like you need to have a piece of this Colts offense. You need to either have Taylor, Hines, Hilton or Campbell, because somebody, maybe multiple pieces, are going to be going off in this Colts side. Vikings, I'm not as in love with it. I don't love this spot for Dalvin Cook, but like I said, Thielen, Daigle, our boy Reeves, he was making fun of Big Irv. Come on, can't Big Irv get here this week?
No.
Okay, well,
you can't.
All right, let's move on to the Falcons at the Cowboys. It's a 52.5-point total. Dallas coming off the win against the Los Angeles Rams by Rams. They are 4.5-point favorites at home. And look, we told you guys last week with 2 teams, the Panthers and the Falcons. We're going to be talking about these games a lot this year. And guess what? Here we are talking about the Cowboys and Atlanta down there in Jerry World. And this is another game where you're going to need some pieces. Ezekiel Elliott, phenomenal spot. You can pick any one of these Cowboys receivers and justify it. On the Atlanta side, of course, it's Julio. It's Ridley. It's Hayden Hurst. Maybe it's Todd Gurley. No, thank you. Reeves, where do we start in this game? Because, I mean, there's just so much goodness everywhere here.
I mean, where do you start? I mean, it's just picks. Be better successful just talking about the guys that we are kind of not wanting to play.
All right, Noah Brown, no. Done.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great spot here for everyone, for the Cowboys offense to bounce back, which was great in the first half on Sunday night and then just completely like went away from everything that they had success in the first half and started giving a ton of pressures. I mean, who would have known Cam Irving was like an important like cog in the Cowboys wheel when he left that game. Dak's ADOT was only 6.5 yards. It was almost 10 yards in 2019. Just too much pressure. It really got to him in the second half of that game. I think it's a great bounce back spot for Michael Gallup. Anyone on the boundary, I was one of these people that was looking for the addition of CeeDee Lamb to kind of add more diversity to the Cowboys receivers. And I thought they were going to move these guys around a lot. Maybe they will when Lamb kind of just learns the ropes outside of one position, but Lamb was just strictly a slot guy and the other guys played outside. I mean, Cooper only was in the slot for 10%, like 10% of his routes. So he's going to be on the boundary. I mean, that's where you want to go here. I mean, that's where the Falcons struggled in week 1. Their first round pick, AJ Terrell, allowed all 6 of the targets in his coverage for 100 yards and a touchdown. Isaiah Oliver, who was awful as a rookie a year ago, allowed 6 to 8 targets in his coverage for 80 yards and a score to go down. It's dealer's choice, man. Whatever you want to do, it's Dak, whatever receivers you want to do. Zeke has multiple touchdowns in 4 of his past 5 games dating back to last year. Whatever you want to do, man, Dallas is going to get there and get points.
Did you see he got the Feed Me tattoo? Did you see this? I'm thinking he might get the same thing.
Please do.
Please do.
I mean, just tell me the amount you want to get that tattoo.
I mean,
just tell me.
That tattoo is going to come real good in like 25 years. He's going to really like that. He's going to enjoy that one.
Yeah, feed me. Yeah, well, luckily for Zeke, he's going to have money to get it removed, so good on him. Like Reeves said, Daigle, it's almost easier to discuss who we don't want in this game. I'm going to be heavily invested in Ezekiel Elliott. That is obviously nothing earth-shattering. I have no problem playing Zeke with any.
Do you know his ownership numbers? Do you have like
right now? It's at 21%. And I understand part of that is Jonathan Taylor taking up a lot of ownership. Let's see, who else do we have taking up a lot of ownership?
Because I do like him as a pivot off of the receivers in this game. But then again, if he's going to be that high owned, it's not even really that unique. Because
the whole game's going to be high owned, but you have to have it.
Yeah, and because for Zeke in particular, Cowboys targeted their running backs at a 19% rate in Mike McCarthy's first game, which was higher than their rate last year to running backs. And Tony Pollard, I know we want it to happen. It just ain't happening. Like 25 touches.
Zeke gets hurt.
25 touches for Zeke, 4 touches for Tony Pollard as strictly a handcuff. So I think Zeke is a really good out to play in this game. Having said that, given these boundary stats that Reeves mentioned, that's why I like Gallup a lot. Like his target share did lack compared to CeeDee Lamb, who finished second on the team behind Amari Cooper. But also we wouldn't be talking about Gallup or being concerned about him if it weren't for that penalty call in the final play. So I still am very high on Gallup in this game in particular. You want the Cowboys offense. They were the fastest paced offense in neutral game script last week against the Rams, despite laying an egg. Yes, the offensive line is worrisome, not just Cam Irving, but even Tyron Smith looks years past his age right now. But even so, they're running fast and they have a good offense. So it's just a matter of getting unique in the spot.
Yeah, right now, Michael Gallup, the only wide receiver between Julio, Ridley, Amari, Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb projected for single-digit ownership.
Interesting.
Oh, baby.
Yeah. Oh, no, Reeves, we just got a little poke under the table there, buddy. Excited about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because he was the guy I was kind of gravitating towards anyways. I mean, listen, it's just the way that works. There's not enough footballs on a per-week basis. At the end of the season, these guys are all going to have numbers, but on a per-week basis, like, they're all not going to get off on the same week.
It's
just
frustrating for me. I hate second teams like that. It drives me crazy.
I mean, it's just not going to happen. And he was the odd man out last week. And I think it was, probably he was the guy he was the one I was the most down on last week coming into the matchup. But I was looking forward to seeing Dallas move those guys around, and they didn't, like I said. So, I mean, now that they aren't, he ran 100% of his routes on the outside, Michael Gallup did. So you just look at it and say, yeah, well, he's the DK Metcalf this week. So, all right, we'll light him up. Yeah, he's the guy that I would be definitely interested in here too. Definitely with Amari too. I mean, Amari, everyone's going to cite those weird home road splits that Amari has, but I just look at the matchup and it's just that the matchup itself is good. I don't need some home road splits to tell me about Amari Cooper. I know that he's going to be going against those two guys we talked about.
Ben's road splits didn't work out on Monday night, so we don't have to worry about road splits.
No. We don't do that. We don't play that game.
The pick six plays it smarter here.
Yeah. All right. Well, and by the way, we didn't really talk about the quarterbacks. Either one of these quarterbacks are fine in this match. I mean, Dak, quarterbacks are never too terribly popular. We're looking at Dak about 10% ownership. I have no problem with that. And he's a really great double stack candidate. You play Dak, you play him with Amari and Gallup, with Gallup and Zeke, however you want to do it. Run it back on the other side with Julio or Ridley. And I mean, to me, Daigle, this is another one of those where the stack kind of builds itself.
What about Hayden Hurst? What do you think about Hayden Hurst?
Hey, I'm all aboard the Hayden Hurst train, buddy. Talk to me about him.
I have an odd theory that either one of Russell Gage or Hayden Hurst will go off with Julio and Calvin every single week. And I just think it happened to be Gage's turn with a similar amount of targets, 12, to Julio and Calvin because of Seattle's beefed up secondary and Jamal Adams being one of the better tight end defenders. And that just being their strength now that they added a few key pieces in their defense. But Hayden Hurst still led the all tight ends in the league in routes run, ran a route on 86% of Matt Ryan's dropbacks. And so I understand the concern always was we knew he'd be used, but we didn't know if he'd get the target share. And it did not happen in week one, but the usage was there. And I think that's enough to chase him, especially in a week where we don't have like George Kittle and like some of these other tight ends at the top. So I do like going down to Hayden Hurst.
Yeah, I have no problem whatsoever with Hayden Hurst. And I got to say, it was nice seeing the teams back on the gridiron over the weekend. Luckily for us, though, that was just week one, and there is no better place to play. There's no better place to get in on the action than with DraftKings, the leader in daily fantasy sports. And to add to this week's excitement, DraftKings has millions of dollars in total prizes up for grabs. If you haven't tried DraftKings yet, what are you waiting for? Get on your phone, head to the App Store right now. You do not want to miss this. You're going to sweat the games like never before. It is this blast, especially when that currently winning keeps going. keeps going up. That always feels nice. It's simple. It's, it's not rocket science like a lot of people think it is. DraftKings, they have paid out over $1 billion. Yeah, that's billion with the B dollars to winners since 2012. Million of it came to this guy. So I know they're paying out that real money. Download the DraftKings app now. Use promo code DFF. For a limited time, new users can get a free shot at millions of dollars in prizes this week. Don't miss out on week 2 NFL action. Enter code DFF to get a free shot at millions of dollars in prizes with your first deposit. That's code DFF only at DraftKings. Make it rain, everybody. All right, let's make it rain with some quarterback talk. We already talked about Dak. We already talked about, some guys in these other games, Tom Brady and his noodle arm. Reeves, I'm going to start with you, brother. Are we going back to Aaron Rodgers? Is this going to be a thing moving forward? Where are you going to quarterback?
Yeah, I'm in. At least, they'll have to string a few of these against some teams that we really care about to really say that Aaron Rodgers is back and his passing game is back. But they're in a very almost identical spot to where they were last week, except for they're at home this week. You look at Aaron Rodgers and he picked on that Vikings defense that had just a litany of changes. He had the most passing yardage on throws over 15 yards or further downfield in the NFL in week 1. He was winging it. He was winging it around. He looked like a guy, like it wasn't just like last year when he picked on the Raiders and threw those touchdowns and you're just like, whatever, the matchup elevated him. Like he looked like a guy that was like from 2014. And then, like I said, it wasn't just leaning on Devontae Adams, although he got his. But you look at this Lions matchup, they give the 4th most passing points in week 1 to Mitchell Trubisky. They didn't have Jeffrey Okudah, who looks like he's going to play this week, but it's a rookie cornerback going against the best wide receiver now that is playing in the NFL. They lost Desmond Trufant. Justin Coleman was put on IR, both with hamstring injuries. Darrell Roberts, who filled in that game, also was out today. They are really limping into this game in the secondary. And it's just going to be a spot where Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to light these guys up. Again, we would like Kenny Golladay to be active in this game, to run it back and keep some action going on the other side for the Lions to put some points up. But Aaron Rodgers is in.
Marvin Jones. We can run it back to Marvin Jones. We're happy.
Hey, listen, Marvin Jones is out there. Everyone that got burned by Marvin Jones, he ran a route on 100% of the team dropbacks. It just didn't happen. What do you? He ran a guy over. You didn't get points for that, but he did truck it. He trucked the guy. But yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers is a great play again, man. I think he's a great seasonal pickup too. I know we don't really do a lot of that on the show, but three of his next 5 games are against the Lions, the Texans, and the Falcons. Like if someone didn't draft him or he skated through in your league, I'm willing to see where it's at the start of the season with those kind of matchups.
Yeah, and of course you could run it back with TJ Gronkinson too. I love me some TJ Hawkinson. You talk about a guy in season long. He's on all my season long teams, so I was happy last week. Daigle, what quarterbacks are you looking at this week?
Yeah, Marvin Jones actually is a good pivot from Quintez Cephas too, because of the 10 targets everyone will cite for much cheaper. I doubt, given the results, that many would play Marvin Jones in that case if Galladay's out. It wouldn't be the pick 6 if we didn't talk about Mitchell Trubisky, right? Because he's in the same spot against the Giants.
We were having such a good show, and here
that just allowed a sluggish and old Big Ben to still rear back and throw 3 scores and 220 yards against them. We are not worried about the Giants' pass rush. I know they got there on Ben, but again, they were missing 2 offensive linemen, and then one of their starters, the 3rd string, went down mid-game. So Trubisky was bad. Don't get me wrong, through 3 quarters, but he ended up getting there in the end. So I wish we would have seen more rushing juice. Only had 3 carries, but I do like Trubisky in this spot. And if you want to talk about overlapping lives here, Trubisky plays the Falcons next week. So we may be forced to talk about both of them yet again next week.
Oh, come on. I will play me. I'll play anybody against Daigle. I'd play you against the Falcons.
I wouldn't do that. Don't take it.
Are people playing Josh Allen this week? I hope not.
Nobody plays Josh Allen ever. You notice this? Like week 14, he starts to get popular. This has been the last 2 seasons. And early in the season, nobody ever plays the dude, even though all he does is score fantasy points.
Yeah, if you look at 2 how they used him in week 1, one, he had the most dropbacks of his career and was 2nd in the NFL. And part of that was, part of the Jets. And we're going to see a lot of that from the Jets this season. The Jets are just hell-bent on stopping the run, even though they have one of the worst secondaries in the league. But seeing both Bills guys pop up, Stephon Diggs and John Brown leading the league in routes run was something that's like, oh, I didn't really think that was going to happen in week 1. But then they utilized him on, not only did they have him drop back a ton, he used play action at the highest rate of his career. and threw for 8.5 yards in play action compared to 5.5 yards without. And then, he's just absolutely dominated this matchup against the Dolphins. I mean, he's been the QB2, the QB1, the QB7, and the QB1 in 4 career games against the Dolphins. Now, does the game that happened 2 years ago against the Dolphins mean anything? No, it doesn't. But the Dolphins just also allowed 75 rushing yards to Cam Newton too, who is kind of very, they're kind of similar fantasy assets. So, I mean, you talk about designed runs and getting usage. So, I mean, I hope that no one really wants to play Josh Allen. The best part about Josh Allen, too, is you don't even have to play him with anybody. Always. Like, you can always play him on his own. I think Ryan Tannehill is a good play, too, this week.
Oh, I was not expecting you to go to Ryan Tannehill, but now that we have Ryan Tannehill, Mitch Trubisky, and season long, congratulations, we have hit bingo. Let's move on to running backs. And, there was one other chalk running back we didn't talk about earlier, and it's somebody that is playing a team that had the biggest upset of week 1, the Titans at home against the Jaguars. Derrick Henry, 7.9K. It's going to be over 20%. I fully understand that the Jaguars won last week. They beat the Colts, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. I fully expect them, once again, Daigle, to get stomped, and I expect them to get stomped by Derrick Henry running right up the middle into the end zone.
The sneaky part about Derrick Henry, too, is that there may be a ceiling to this offense we didn't know about because they ran 78 plays against the Broncos, which was 20 more than what they averaged last year, 58, which was extremely odd. So if we're talking about more plays potentially for Tennessee, then we have to mention that Derrick Henry also over his career has averaged 16.6 carries, over 5 yards per carry, 6 yards per touch, and 1.2 touchdowns in 8 career games against the Jaguars. And he's fresh off 34 touches against the Broncos and 100% of the running back touches in that game for Tennessee. So Derrick Henry's ceiling and floor, I understand that we do worry about him being touchdown dependent, but it just does seem like an explosion game for him. Yeah, and then go ahead.
No. I was just saying I am definitely not worrying about him not catching enough passes because the dude just gets in the end zone.
And then another one I do like, I don't know what kind of ownership he's going to carry, but it seems like we've already forgotten about Clyde Edwards-Helaire since he played the first game before Sunday. And just the fact that it was encouraging he saw 100% of the team's touches inside the 10 over Darrell Williams. Yes, he didn't get in the end zone, but it doesn't matter when he's getting that kind of opportunity and handling 25 of 34 running back touches. So there's a 30-touch ceiling for Clyde Edwards-Helaire that we didn't realize would exist in week 2. So he's more like one of the best plays on the entire slate. It's just a matter of what his ownership will come in at.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're looking at 11% ownership for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Okay. And if he's going to be that low, especially the way he catches passes and get the goal line looks, I have no problem with that at all. Reeves, where are you looking at running back?
Yeah, we covered a lot of the bases of the big backs. I think Kenyon Drake is pretty interesting this week. A lot of people will look at thinking that he just didn't fully dominate the backfield, and he didn't compared to what he did towards the end of the season, but it's like every other backfield in the NFL, basically. He still played 70% of snaps. He had 2/3 of the backfield touches. We know he's going to run more pass routes. We know he is the goal line back, and you've got another big home favorite. So I think he might go overlooked a little bit. And then I guess if the James Conner doesn't play, we have to at least talk about Benny Snell. I don't know. I definitely think Benny Snell's big picture, like waiver wire, like outlook has been way oversold this week. But if it's a 1-game fill-in, there's as a home favorite. I mean, there's at that kind of pricing, you might entertain it. The problem with him is just like last year, even for as good as he looked in the second half of that game, they went right to Jalen Samuels anytime it was time to run a running back out of the backfield in a pass route. So I mean, that's the one hang up there. But yeah, we pretty much covered all the big dogs. I don't think it's a week to get cute at running back. It's pretty much out there for you.
Benny Snell will be chalk though. Like if it's 4,500 and like, Antonio Gibson or Boston Scott, however you went, like I think you can actually avoid it anyhow. Like the Broncos just allowed Derrick Henry 3.7 yards per carry, 3.8 yards per touch. I know it was one game, but Fangio, although he's bad with timeouts, can scheme it up on the defensive side of the ball. So I think that Benny Snell is someone I'll definitely be avoiding if he becomes the chalk.
Yeah, he's going to be about 30% owned, so I have no problem with that. Yeah, like last week I felt guys, I said I want to stack up the Panthers-Raiders game with 62 points, and I had 0 Boston Scott. You would think I did well. Here we are, though. You mentioned
when Bryce Love was out, when Bryce Love was inactive, I just jammed Antonio Gibson in everywhere.
Yeah, well, he's somebody – I'm going back to this week.
And
I'm really going back to him this week. And maybe at the running back position where there's so many strong plays, that's a mistake. I have to imagine, though, against Arizona, he's going to see more than 2 targets. And to me, this is a guy that everybody wanted to play last week. The price is still stagnant at 4.3K. I have no problem going back to Gibson this week. Am I nuts?
Well, the good news is that 18 touches, 2 yards per carry, and Peyton Barber, this is not the game script for him, you would imagine. It would be Antonio Gibson game script, although J.D. McKissic hung around and ran more routes. So,
yeah, I mean, Barber's overall carries look a lot different than how that game played out. He had 10 carries in the fourth quarter. It was kind of a hodgepodge of the 3 guys before that. And Gibson looked good in the first half, and he had 1 goal line carry, didn't convert it, and then we didn't see him again for the rest of the game. So they just milked the clock with Peyton Barber because his carries are like kneel downs.
Yeah, that's not going to be this game. By the way, are we going back to the Washington football team defense?
They're in play, but I think the problem is you have a more mobile quarterback. The 49ers got home last week. They had 12 pressures. They only got 2 sacks. So, you got a little more mobility to escape some of those, that pass rush, but I think the pass rush is going to get home again for sure.
Yep, I have no problem. All right, let's talk some wide receivers. Daigle, we talked about a lot of the guys that we're going to like in that Atlanta-Dallas game. Guess what? Everybody's going to like those guys. We talked about Juju last week a little bit. I like him once again against Denver. Where are you going at the wide receiver position this week?
I'll just play the hits and say, let's go back to Mike Williams, who is not a running joke. Like, it really is a good spot. It's not.
It's been a good spot for 3 years.
So Mike Williams, 5th most air yards last week, 10th highest target share in the entire league. And we should expect Tyrod Taylor, who averaged the 2nd most air yards per attempt in week 1, that to continue since you go back to 2018, his most recent starts before this, and he averaged 9.9 air yards per attempt. So he's a deep thrower, and we expect him to have the ball more against Kansas City's offense since it's likely being negative game script. So I do think Mike Williams, I know it's a running joke on the show, but I do think Mike Williams in a good spot. He'll get end zone targets, and then we'll talk about him again whenever he doesn't score next week.
Yeah. Let's see. Who do they play next week? Let me guess. It's going to be a great spot.
I don't know that.
Definitely going to be a great spot.
It's just unbelievable. This is like
perpetual great spot.
I used to tell my wife when I played poker full time, I said, no, it's a great spot. I'm going to go. And she goes, oh my God, that's what you say when you're about to lose money. I feel like this is Mike Williams.
That's what you say whenever you stack the Panthers Raiders passing games.
Exactly. It's a great spot. I swear. Here we are. And, yeah, not good. All right, Reeves, what wideouts are you looking for not named Mike Williams?
Listen, I'm not going to do anything cute here. I'm going to play Devontae Adams until they price him to where Michael Thomas was last year. I'm just going to do it until he gets to there. He's wide receiver Christian McCaffrey, man. Like, it's money in the bank. The amount of targets and just surplus of opportunity he sees, it's until he gets to like 9.5 and I'm just going to put him in. I don't even care. I'll work around it. And you've got a ton of options this week to do it. You can play Deontay Johnson, you can play Christian Kirk, all these guys, these low price guys that are fine, ancillary piece guys. Deontay Johnson, if he wasn't priced where he is, he'd be a guy that I would want to fade against the public just because he gets no end zone targets and he doesn't get deep targets. Even his 8 out last week was 6 yards. The guy is more talented than the way he's used. And I know he made some mistakes on Monday night, but the Steelers haven't really unleashed him like an actual, real full-fledged wide receiver yet. And until that happens, I think that his ceiling's a little lower than what people cite his target share and percent of team air yards and stuff like that is. I think he's a lower ceiling than most believe he does. But at 4.5, if the dude gets 8 to 10 targets against a secondary that's banged up that couldn't stop Corey Davis, he's probably going to get home. Christian Kirk was thrown to the Lambs, the Wolves last week, the Richard Sherman Wolves. He ran 80% of his routes at right wide receiver. The 49ers amazingly didn't realize till 3.5 quarters that the Arizona was just going to keep throwing the same pass to DeAndre Hopkins on the other side of the field. And amazingly didn't realize that. And then before they finally started moving Sherman over there, because Hopkins only had 1 target in Sherman's coverage. But yeah, I think a lot of people are pivoting over there. I think a lot of people are on the Christian Kirk thing and understanding what happened. The problem is like Mike Williams, Christian Kirk was a regular in this segment, a year ago. And we'll see. We'll put this to the test early on. The Mike Williams, Christian Kirk bounce back spots?
Yeah,
Or will
let's see if Kobe Fleener's available to jump on the show.
Right, the buy low guys that are the weekly buy low guys. We need Frisco Josh. Can we redact them in week 2? Because I think if they don't, they might be permanent redacted.
Mike Williams, Christian Kirk, and Mitchell Trubisky should host this show every week.
Yeah, boy, that's no, thank you. There's one guy that, and look, this match was terrible.
It's the Crain take.
I got a Crain.
Oh, this is what I come here for.
Okay, and this guy is going to see double-digit targets. This guy's going to be under 5% owned. This guy is going to be in a heavy passing game script, and he's got huge upside. The matchup's brutal, but Will Fuller at home against the Ravens, he's 6.3K. I mean, you talk about a guy, if you can get a guy under 5% owned that's got 30-point upside in a matchup like this, and again, not a great matchup, but that's the reason he's so low. And we've seen these wide receivers, especially these big play guys. It only takes them a few times to get there. And I don't know, Reeves, I see you shaking your head yes, so maybe it's not as crazy as I think it is.
Well, I think just your logic is there. I mean, I can cite a bunch of numbers and tell you why it's a terrible play, but
I mean, he's not a bad play.
Exactly. No, so I mean, I'm not even going to really push back on it because you said like you've got a guy that is going to still have, even in a bad matchup, is going to have a high target share. And he's just one play, man, one play.
And as we know,
volume's king, and like this is a spot where, again, it's not great. If you want to play Lamar, run it back. I'm not sure you need to do that with Lamar, but I mean, you can play Will Fuller either way. Houston's going to have to air it out here.
And as we know, Deshaun Watson's yards per attempt, 7.7, and neutral game script increases to 8.4 when the Texans are trailing. So I do worry about this offense. The play calling and the coaching in general, as it's always been, was extremely bad against the Chiefs. But then again, Will Fuller still got there in week 1, no matter that. So, of course, Will Fuller.
Where else are they going to go with the ball?
Nowhere. Jordan Akins.
Okay, exactly.
I'm kidding.
Don't worry. Here comes Randall Cobb again. Like, it's just, I mean, Will Fuller is going to get like 12 to 15 targets here and be 3% owned, and people are going to be mad at themselves. And look, even if he doesn't get there with that kind of target share at that ownership, I'm going to be willing to roll the dice. Reeves, we're done a little bit early, man. Anything you want?
Raven side's pretty good on that too. In that
what?
Game. The Raven side's pretty good in that game too.
Well, here, let's talk about this because we didn't really touch on it running backs, and I actually meant to. The J.K. Dobbins, Mark Ingram thing. Mark Ingram had a couple extra carries than Dobbins last week. I mean, how long before Dobbins takes this job?
I mean, he did outsnap Mark Ingram in week 1, but again, that was a big game script where they benched their starters through the fourth quarter. So I still have a lot of Dobbins. Again, we don't talk about this much in season long because I think it's much sooner than people realize. Yeah. But we saw that Dobbins at least cut into Gus Edwards' touch share and snap rate in week 1, and that's what we could hope for. So this is another game script that we think as big home favorite or big favorites in general that we think Dobbins will be involved. Also in this game, Mark Andrews, who I know it's not a hot take to have him, but just that he had never played more than 57%. I tweeted this out earlier this week. A snap rate in his entire career until this one game this week. And that's, of course, without Hayden Hurst on the team anymore. And he played 71% of the Ravens snaps in a game in which, again, they benched their starters in the fourth quarter. So it's to the moon with Mark Andrews for the rest of the year.
Yeah, maybe we'll just play a little Deshaun Watson. Underdog quarterbacks at home. I know, Reeves, that's the thing. Come on. He's got a Konami code. I'm throwing all the Reedsisms out there. Come on, Hribar. Come on.
I know. Listen, it's the same thing with Will Fuller. Like, I'm such a robot. I just see like this is such a terrible spot. And that last year when they played, he had the fewest amount of fantasy points he's ever scored in his career. The Ravens have just been so good defensively, especially since they got Marcus Peters. I mean, it's hard for me.
Deshaun is a thing.
Will Fuller, you could talk me into because it's one play. Deshaun Watson, I think needs a lot of plays to get there, especially at quarterback.
Not that I'm defending the Watson pick, but we did think coming into the year that the Ravens were due for defensive regression, and like I don't think we can rule that out just because they played Baker Mayfield. But boy, you want to talk about someone who looks awful like. That game, like we can't even really count Baltimore's defense, although they were really good. I agree.
It was great. The other day, I'm listening to one of a radio show, and they were doing the Hulu Has Live sports read, and they do and watch your favorite quarterbacks like Baker May, and they just start cracking up on air. It was phenomenal. It might have been the greatest read I've ever heard because your favorite player like Baker Mayfield, and they just all laughed. It was great.
I mean, the Ravens just pick up dudes, though, and they're amazing. I mean, Patrick Queen was awesome. Calais Campbell's out here dropping into coverage and forcing interceptions. The Ravens just, they just do a great job, man, of retooling and making this happen. I mean, maybe they eventually do Mr. Earl Thomas and something happens, in season. But at that point, I just assume they'll just trade for another guy.
I'm just going to play Lamar and Will Fuller this week and call in. Let's hope something good
Lamar's
happens.
week really reminds me of Patrick Mahomes' week last year. Remember when everyone was like, the regression's going to happen, and Mahomes just tore up the Jaguars. And then this year, Lamar still in week 1 led all quarterbacks in yards per attempt and touchdown rate, just where he left off.
But that first competitive game script for the Ravens, you better have Lamar Jackson because it's going to be fireworks.
Yep. All right, guys, before we get off here, do not forget you can try RotoGrinders Core4 Premium subscription at a discount. Go to www.rotogrinders.com/media/pick6. Go to the pick 6 page because that means that you like us more than everybody else, and we appreciate that. It gets you 5% or $5 off your first month. We got to get off here, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Reeves, Daigle, thank you for joining me. I'm Eric. Good luck in your contest this week, everybody. We will catch you later. Peace.